Welcome to Hometown Cable program. What's going on here? Bob Venn, your host, and our guest today is, if I call him Andy, he'll have to forgive me. It says Albert Morelli, not Junior or
Right,
anything like
Bob,
that.
right.
Albert Morelli, and we're in his home here on the street, Willow Street in the northern part of the village of Champlain, in French Village, we call it, huh?
Right.
French Village area?
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, Albert, thank you very much for agreeing. We saw Albert the other day at the 50th anniversary of the elementary school, the building, and we got talking, and he said he had some other pictures. I had a few up, and we said, well, could we see those sometime? And here we are 2 days later, and
Right.
thanks very much, Albert, for that. Albert's involved in so many things that we're going to be going in a lot of directions this afternoon, and please bear with us because he's got all kinds of things. And first of all, we'll just name a few. Let's start out. You were born where, Albert?
I was born in Ross's Point,
Many,
Pratt Street.
many years ago.
Well, 1923.
In Rouse's Point?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be 70 next year?
That's right.
Oh, you don't look that age. We don't think of you like that. And you have two children,
Right. I have Mary and Andy.
right? Andy Morelli and Mary.
Mhm.
And your wife is
Iona Laporte. her
Iona
maiden name.
Laporte, and her brother, we can get him, is Merrill Laporte
Right.
from Cooperville. We kind of get this family together here.
Uh-huh.
And we'll start right off. Of course, your dad was pretty well known in Rouse's Point.
Yes, Dad was. Uh-huh. Very active.
And it's
And
not
what-
true that he worked 73 years for the railroad, but how many years?
I mean,
I didn't say you told me that. How
well, I'm
many years?
looking at the clipping Calvin had.
50 years, you said, at the railroad?
Yeah, a little over 50 years.
In Napier Junction?
Right. He started off at the D&H, then he went into Naperville Junction. Yep.
Okay. He was also well known because he was a judge.
He was a judge, and then he was on the village board in Ross's Point. He's very active in the Legion there. He brought them back on their feet, I don't know how many times. Yep.
Was he able to keep his son in line being judged like that, Albert?
Well, we always got along pretty good, Dad and I.
You did? How
Yeah.
many in your family? How many were there?
There's 4.
All right, we know that...
I've got 2 sisters in Florida, and my brother passed away a year or so
Let's
ago.
talk about your
Westport.
sisters. Let's talk about Agnes.
Yeah, she married Clifford Duquette, and they're living someplace down in Florida.
Yeah, lived on Spruce Street here in Champlain for many years, and Cliff worked at the shop also.
Mhm.
And another sister is who?
Yeah, Bernadette. She's married James Vallon. He used to be a border patrolman here. They're down in Florida, too. They're
And you're,
living down
you're
there. He's
staying up here
retired.
and keeping the fires burning, though.
Uh-huh.
You go to Florida?
No, they've invited me down. The furthest south I get is Plattsburgh.
Well, save up some money. You got to
Huh?
save some money up to go down to Florida.
Go talk to the boss. She don't want to travel.
You can go with my wife. I don't care to go to Florida either, really. Okay, so,
I haven't mentioned what his father's name is.
well, yeah, we haven't said who your father's name is yet.
Frank S. Morelli.
Frank S. Morelli in Rouse's Point. Was he from Rouse's Point originally, too?
No, he came from Italy. A little town about 14 miles south of Rome. He came over here with his Uncle Angelo, and I think if you, when you get into the write-up on the railroad, you'll see the name of the place. His first job when he came here, he was water boy when they built Pratt Street in Ross's Point. And then from there, he worked with his uncle on the ice, coal, and wood business. And then he went into railroading, but he still hung on to the ice, coal, and wood business. His uncle got killed, and the ice and coal and wood business was left to him. And then when refrigerators started coming out and pot burners, then he started losing his business.
What year was that?
Oh my God, I was just a kid
You
then.
did- Was that before the O.E. Southwick Lumber Company and so forth? And
No,
coal?
Southwick was had his lumber company down in the end of Rose Avenue.
Oh, okay, so they were both there about the same time?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right.
Dad's ice house used to be down on Rose Avenue on the right-hand side, about 3/4 of the way down, just past where Albert Antiel's houses are and in there.
Okay.
And he used to cut ice right out straight there. And when he was ready to cut his ice, he had to send one cake to Albany, packed in ice. And they had to check it to make sure it was okay. Then he'd start cutting his ice after Christmas. And the reason why he'd do that, we'd go around and pick up all Christmas trees that people were throwing out. And we'd use them for markers on the lake so
Yes.
skaters wouldn't go
Good
around
point.
that area.
Good idea.
And
yeah.
Peg's father used to do a lot of the cutting for him. He had a gasoline saw. He'd cut the cakes.
And you say Peg Barcombe?
Right.
Bedard, Mr. Bedard.
Yeah, Mr. Bedard. Bill Kalash worked for him. Johnny Ducharme, Maynard Ducharme, oh my God, I forget how many, but and George Turtle, that's in Ross's Point. In those days, they had horses and sleighs. They'd bring the ice up in. And they'd come up chutes, load them onto the wagons. They'd come up to the ice house, and they'd pull them up into the ice house, pack sawdust all around them. He'd get his sawdust up here at Kaufman Sawmill.
See,
He also had an ice house right in back of where the bowling alley used to be down here. Dave Roberts
River
Bowling
Street,
Alley.
yeah, River Street.
And that's when the custom house was Mr. Franklin used to
Yes.
live.
We're talking about the house right across from the funeral home.
That's right, the red one. That used
where
to be
the
the
steps
custom
are.
house.
Yep.
Yeah. And Ham McCrae used to work in there at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember one day I was down there with my dad, and he had a young couple in there, Mr. McCrae did, and he had a bottle of liquor on the counter in there. There was a back door. We could see the back door from the ice house. So he went back out in the car with the two of them to see if they had any more. So while he was gone, my father ran in and grabbed a bottle of liquor. Mr. McCrae had to let the guys go. He didn't have no evidence.
This is the judge.
He wasn't the judge
This
then.
was the judge to be. Yeah, they picked their judges. And listen, you know, we talked about jumping all around. We haven't even got to Albert yet, for crying out loud. We're talking about his father. Like what I have in front of me here, we cleaned the wall off in the front porch here of some of the things that this man has been active in. Here's an award, a district award presented to Albert Morelli in 1958 by the Adirondack Boy Scouts of America, Boy Scouts. What did you have to do with the Boy Scouts?
I had Cub Scouts when John Enemy had the Boy Scouts. I had troops here and troops in Ross's Point. And that same year, I got the Scouters Award. I also received my Scouter's Key. I got a write-up in the paper on that, too. Francis Delorme and I. Francis has got a nursery in Plattsburgh now.
This is one I hadn't thought about, the Boy Scouts. We'll put these back, but we're going to just jump along here. Now, here's in appreciation for 17 years dedicated service in helping to make the Harris Graphics Children's Christmas Parties a great success from Harry Bowery, 12/14/1985. So there he's with the children again in this community. Albert Morelli was a cop in this. He was the police chief, the only one, I guess.
Yeah.
For how many years?
27.
Now he kept boys in line, but he also made sure that these young people, he kept them out of trouble, and as well as when they got in trouble, he kind of tended them up a little bit too, right? He was the kind of a policeman you'd like to have in the village who the people respected, and they weren't afraid of Albert. Now Albert did his job. And we appreciate all the years you've done on that, Albert. And that's the third one then, because we got here, and when I mentioned the policeman. This is to Albert Morelli. You got enough clocks in here. I hope they all have the same time. In a commemoration dedicated service to as chief of the Champlain Fire Department, presented by Niagara Hose Company Number 1 on June the 13th, 1981. And how many years in the fire department?
47.
40. Now you got to remember, some of these years are the same years. These are not one after the other. He's not 170. He's only 69 and a half. Another one with the 47 years with that fire department.
Yeah, and I want to thank the boys in the department, too, because letting me hang on. Because, see, I'm not as active as I should be in the summer months because of my job at the golf course. But I get out as much as I can during the winter months and help them. And they know I want to get my 50 years in there. So they're hanging on to me, and God bless the whole bunch of them.
Nobody ever claimed you to be a hanger-on. You were one of the leaders up in the front of the pack all the time, Albert.
Well, I can't handle a hose anymore. I can't climb ladders. But I fire police, okay.
Well, there's another. I thought we were in the library here at first, you know, for meritorious service and loyal cooperation from the American Legion. Albert Morelli awarded Post 767 on the 22nd day of March, 1969, 23 years ago. How long have you been a Legionnaire?
50 years.
50 years in the Legion. You're in Champlain. A few people saw the little story that Calvin did when they were presented their check by Mr. Paquette. People didn't want to say very much at first, and who comes into the picture all of a sudden is Albert Morelli, and he was willing to talk. People told me I wouldn't have any trouble today getting you to talk.
Oh, no.
Is that going to be true?
You get me started, I can't stop.
All right, Albert. And we got a black one. He's got them on all colors here. In appreciation for his services rendered to the community while serving as a member of and then chief of the Champlain Police Department for 27 years, presented by the American Legion Post as an award to him and should I say a memento, more than a memento, to Albert J. Morelli. and that was March 19th, 1977. Is that when you got out of the fire department?
Just about then, yeah. Oral presented me that at the Legion.
Now, Oral was a policeman at the time.
He was a patrolman
under you. How many did you have at one time?
All I had was Oral. I had Roger Duper for a while, but Roger left the area. There was just Oral and I.
That's when you had all the traffic to the village, too.
Well,
you had traffic duty.
That's when I started, when we had all that traffic in the village. That was before the two-way was built. Clifford LaPlante was mayor at the time, and he come up and asked me if I wanted the job. And I says, yeah. So Rollins stuck me down street in front of the Champlain Hotel, and the cars were coming in every direction. Well, if you remember then on Sunday mornings, you couldn't get out of Church Street.
I know, yes.
You remember how it was.
Oh, yeah.
Traffic was bumper to bumper from the border right to Cumberland Head.
We're talking Route 9 now, right straight down through the main street, and they're bumper to bumper, technically for 4 or 5 miles back.
Oh, yeah, and there was nothing to be there from about 8 o'clock in the morning till around 3 in the afternoon. And then it would quieten down for a while. We'd come home, soak our feet in cold water, have a bite to eat, get back down there till about 8, 9 o'clock at night when the traffic was coming back. Otherwise, the people couldn't get out of the side streets.
I realized you did that job for the money.
Oh, paid good.
How many hours did you work? And what
I never kept track of my hours, but I don't think I made 50 cents an hour.
That's right. But,
plus the wear and tear of my own car. In fact, my daughter used to use my car when they started driving. And I had people come up, complain to the village board that what were them kids doing with the village car.
Yeah, right.
And it was my own car.
Yeah. All right, we'll look at one more, then we'll take a...
You mentioned Rollins. You should mention who the chief was that hired him.
Okay, yes. Yeah, who hired you? The chief that hired you was who?
Clifford LaPlante hired me.
Yeah,
he was mayor.
But the chief, you said Rollins put you down there.
Yeah, well, Rollin was the chief at the time.
Who was he?
Rollin Emery.
Rollin Emery.
Yeah, I've got to write up him in the papers.
Okay, that's Dick Emery's father and Bob
Yeah.
Emery's father and the rest of the Emerys.
Bob, I'll tell you, Rollin was one hell of a nice guy to work with.
How long was he in the police department here?
God, I don't know.
30 years or more, probably,
Rollin, quite a bit.
Yeah.
Quite a few. I can check when we get into the newspaper clippings.
Yeah. Were you at the police department at the time that the Holga boys wrecked up there at Dudley's Corners and there was that bad accident?
No.
That was in the 50s, I think.
No, I wasn't in there then.
You weren't in there, yeah.
No.
All right, we'll look at one more before we go on, and this is from the Harris Graphics in recognition of dedicated service to the Bindery Systems Division, 43 years, because he did have to make a living. He had some children here at home, and he couldn't live on the policeman's salary. Have a happy and healthy retirement, Harry Mowry, Vice President, General Manager, January 1st, 1986. And I guess they closed up in, 86?
Yeah.
In the fall.
Charlotte, I think they went about a year and a half, two after I quit.
Anybody else in your family work at the shop?
No.
We call it the shop.
Yeah, Mary did.
Mary worked
Yeah,
there?
Mary lost her job when they closed the plant down. Yeah, she worked there for quite a few years. Maybe Calvin might remember. I don't.
They closed in October '87. '86 was when they made the announcement.
Yes, I was looking.
That's what it was.
October '86 they made the announcement. People can't hear me if I.
Okay, yes, okay. So he's talking about it. October '87. It was officially. I was looking last night at the program where they had the meeting in the Legion. They had a committee. That was November 3rd, '86.
Yeah.
So you retired just before that. You were able to get out early.
Yeah.
Okay, there's another. We'll take a short break. We're in the residence of Ione and Albert Morelli on Willow Street here in Champlain, New York, and we're.
After we left, they closed the place.
Yes, right. After they left, they closed it. Yeah,
One
they were
thing I
keeping it
never-
open for you.
Yeah, one thing I never forgive that place for, the deal they pulled on him.
Oh,
Never forget that. I'll never forget it.
We're gonna get into that. Let's take a break here. We'll get.
You better take a break.
Want to get a break? Want to talk
They
about
pulled
that
a
right
dirty
now?
deal on that.
You want to
right
tell
there.
us about that right now?
Huh?
Tell us about it,
He can tell you.
Calvin.
I don't care.
Well, Calvin was very instrumental in starting a union in the office.
In the office, okay.
Right. He even took pains to come to Albany with us that were in the union to meetings down there with some of the big shot lawyers of the company and stuff. And what the heck was his name from Moore's? That was pushing against the union. So anyways, the union didn't go in. And it was shortly...
Let's not mention names.
No, let's not mention names there.
Sure.
We'll just mention Calvin.
Shortly after that, Calvin was out the door.
He was out the door.
And
eh?
I never forgive them for that.
Well,
No.
so Calvin, you do still have some friends around here, like I guess.
I knew the guy that was behind it, and to this day I hate him for it.
Well, Calvin's had his awards, and he's been well recognized.
That
He's
was
well
a
thought
dirty
of.
deal they pulled on Calvin.
And Citizen of the Year here this year. And God, Calvin, this guy's got more awards than we have to combine. But we're going to take a short break here. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching Hometown Cable, and stay tuned because we got some pictures coming up. You're not going to be looking at his puss here all afternoon. There's going to be some pictures we're going to look at.
Right.
Okay?
Sure.
Okay. Bob's over here. This is Albert here now. He and I have switched, but this is Albert right here. Another one of his awards here, the American Legion Citation for Meritorious Service to Albert Morelli. He's awarded the site in recognition of Post 767 in March '63. That's for work with the Legion itself.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you had 50 years with them.
Right. That's all right. Just stick it anywhere up there, Bob.
And the American Legion Certificate of Commendation presented to Albert Morelli, Champlain Police Chief, for outstanding service carrying out his duties as a police officer in a manner which reflected credit upon all law enforcement officers and for dedication to the profession above and beyond the call of duty. Francis Roberts, Post Commander, Gerald Mayo, Post Adjutant, March 16, 1974. Albert is very active in his church. He was one of the, I think you were there in the first year as the parade chairman of the St. Mary's Bazaar, which celebrated its 26th anniversary this year and continued on for at least 15 years as parade chairman, starting every year on time exactly, except one year when the planes were flying over and he didn't hear the bells go off in the village, the siren, and I think it was a minute late.
Yeah,
Other than that, it was always on time. And we were proud of that. We could advertise. Nobody waited for our parade.
I didn't like keep people waiting.
Right. Now, there's other things that he's been instrumental in. As we say, he's always willing to help at the church. KOC?
I was in the KC, yeah, but I...
You're no longer in the
No,
KOC
no,
now.
no
All right,
longer
for
in the
years in the KOC. And in addition to that, he's able to keep his family happy here, and I think so. Ione hasn't come in, but I assume you kept your family happy. And it's a pleasure to be here with Albert, and we were looking at some pictures. Here's a picture, for instance, that we may not be able to identify everybody in here. We don't know when this was taken, do we?
Mm-mm.
This is the fire department in Champlain in front of the Legion, and we do see Mr. Terrace here, and Larry Guerin here over on the left, two people, and they're the only ones deceased in that whole picture.
Okay. I've got it frozen, so you can...
You have? Okay. You want to read off from left, and let's see, do the ones in the front, if you can, kneeling.
That's Red DeMars.
Mm-hmm.
That's, what's it, Ronnie Bushy, Franklin, John Bleed, Dwayne, myself, Floyd.
Kneeling, yep. Okay, now starting from the left again, the first row standing would be Larry Guerin.
Baker.
Carey, right? Frank Carey.
Homer. Miller.
Yep.
Phil Strack. Leroy Cookman. Oral.
Oral looks like he's got a collar like a priest there, but he hasn't, yeah.
Yeah, he was very religious in the days.
Oral Parsons. Okay, then we go back to the left.
Paul Barker.
Yep.
Bob Terrace.
Yep.
Dave Southwaite.
Right.
Lucas Wayne.
Yep, Wayne in behind.
Rainey Longway.
Ray Langlois in behind Frank. Yep.
Floyd Bursey.
Correct.
Jack Favreau.
Jack Favreau. And then Sonny Babby.
Right. And Julius Mayo.
And Julius Mayo. That was that.
That was the
fire
department
department
at that time.
Yep. And many of those still active in the fire department, right?
Let me see.
Well, of course, Frank Carey's now in Rouse's Point.
He's in the fire department yet.
That would be
Franklin. Floyd. Oral. Gee, I think that's
okay,
all.
that's it. That's all right. They retired here.
And myself.
And
Yeah,
yourself.
that's all.
All right.
Was Jack Favreau a police officer when you were chief?
No.
No, huh?
No.
These pictures here, you're not going to be able to
Oh, you can explain them,
pick
Bob.
these out, but what they have is that it's called the
25-year
25 years
shop.
club from the shop, and every year they had a party, usually at the Anchorage,
Yeah.
when the Anchorage was there as it was, and all the men gathered, and there's people in here, and I was looking at one here in 1970, and I think I came across in one row, only one person left living, and I've already jumped all over Albert, that these pictures, the names are not with these pictures, and they should be, because it's someone like Albert that can identify him. And in another 20 years, it'll be hard to identify these people. And he has these, and if you'll see, there's another one on the back, taken on the inside, and then a 79 and the 78. We saw some of these on the wall of Andy Juno when we were there to do the shoe repair. So most everybody there got a picture like this, right?
Right.
So they're not like hen's teeth. There are a lot of them around here, but they're very. I think it's a great honor to have these and to these fellow workers you work so many hours with, and loafed with.
Mm.
Did they work every minute of every hour when the shop was there?
Who's that?
Anybody who worked there? Was there time off inside once in a while?
No.
You worked steady.
You work steady.
All right.
When I first started working there, I'd start working at 7 o'clock in the morning and get through at 7 o'clock at night.
12 hours.
12 hours a day. And on Saturday, we'd start at 7, got through at 11. I was bringing home $16.25 top pay.
Yeah.
I gave my wife the $16 and she gave me the quarter.
Also, in 1973, they celebrated the Centennial Days here on August 25th and 6th in Champlain, and they put out a little booklet. This booklet was written by Mr. McClellan, Woody, and Larry Paquette. Got the material in this book together. I had the privilege of being the MC for this day, and Albert Morelli was the parade chairman again. They always got Albert. When you do a good job, you don't get out of it. And you said this was one of the biggest parades
I've ever
ever had, huh?
I had 15 men helping me to line up that parade, and we used both exits up on the two-way here on both sides. We had them lined up on both sides. We had to get out early in the morning, stake the area all out, have our posters made, and when these units come in, tell them where to go. Yeah.
If you don't have one of these little books, it's about 12 or 15 pages. When you're at our village library, ask to see it. They've got a couple up there, and just go through this. There's a lot of facts about the village of Champlain, the first settlers, the Lyceum Theater, etc. like that. And when we had our second Village Fest this year, some of the questions I asked for the trivia come out of this little booklet, thanks to Mr. Paquette and Mr. McClellan. And then there's some pictures here.
Yeah, go right ahead, Bob. Take them.
I have one here that I brought, I thought. All I got to do is find it now. Go with it. This was a picture from the Plattsburgh Press in the 73, getting ready for some of the advertising that was given to us. Jesse Nichols took this picture, and we tell someone who these people are. On the left,
that's Tuggy Roberts.
Yep.
Gerald Mayo.
Supervisor now, yep.
Smiley.
Smiley Willette.
I don't know who that one is.
Yeah. Bob Van there with the parasol.
That's myself, and that's a young lady.
That's Donna Filio.
Uh-huh.
Mrs. Donna Filio here from the street. And they a little bit of advertising about that particular centennial we had. And this is not part of it, was it? No, that was not part of this thing.
That's that from Chazy. That was in the parade.
Okay, it says in this next thing here, the parade for the village of Champlain Centennial is expected to be more than twice as big as any ever held. So far, 61 units were signed up, 11 bands, 11 marching units, 25 floats, and 14 fire departments. Over 1,000 marchers.
Right.
King and Queen of the celebration will be in the private coach of the late William H. Miner. Lots of things happened at that. And some of the, as Bob's Tasty Freeze, which is now, of course, he went on to own the market there on Ridge Road, and then a restaurant. Give me a name quick.
Burger Island.
Burger Island. But that was his float, the Champlain Telephone Company, one of the great sponsors. They both sponsors that hometown cable. And while we're at that, we just celebrated, as I mentioned, the 50th anniversary. In 1959, they dedicated the stone in front of the elementary school. At that time, I think it was still Champlain Central at that particular time, in the honor of Yehudi Ashman, who was a native and born here in Champlain and went on to be one of the founders of the country of Liberia. And Champlain's very proud of him, and you'll find his name listed in encyclopedias. And the other night, as a result of my little display, Marshall Maynard, who graduated from Champlain in the late, I think it was 49, brought me a set of 4 stamps to give me to put in my records from Liberia. And the one on the right is honoring Yehudi Ashman, and his name is right there, and there he is, founding his country. It's inside of a plastic liner. And we thank Marshall for that very, very much. And someday when we have a little place to display these, I'll be giving these to any little museum we have, and to our president historian, of course, Celine Paquette, doing a good job. But we just don't have a place to store it. That's our problem. Anything like this that you have in a village that you don't have a use for, talk to Celine or myself. I'm always glad to put this stuff away. I know what's going to happen to it when I no longer have it. It's not for sale or anything like that. I don't care for value as far as dollars, Albert. Things like this should be kept for the future, for people. Mm-hmm. And well, okay, Albert. Now you had the stationery too, right?
Oh yes.
Is it stationery set up the village here.
Last one is.
Some more of the Champlain Centennial, 1873, the village of Champlain. Centennial Days, August 25th and 6th. Okay, these were some of the prizes for the floats that they had. They gave 3 for floats, 3 for bands, and 3 for marching prizes, 100, 50, and 25. A lot of money in 1973,
That's what got them in here.
In 1959, when they had the dedication of the new post office down on Lower Main Street, and they got a block dance over next to the Grange Hall, which you must have been working around at the time, and then they also had this dedication for Yehudi Ashman. I forgot what I was going to tell you now. Oh, the Andrews sisters, the famous Andrews sisters were in town, courtesy of the Mason brothers, who brought them down here. Sid and Sammy Mason brought them down there in their convertible, and they were in your parade, correct? Great honor for the village.
They went up to Mrs. McRae's and had a tea party up there before the parade. And it was almost time for the parade to start, and they hadn't showed up yet. So I drove up with my car, and I told them, I says, look, either you get up there now, or we're going without you.
Well, some of our parades, in the early time of the bazaar, the chairman of the parade, not the chairman, but the what do you call the man that we were honoring, didn't always appear in the front, did he? He appeared 4, 5, 6, or 8 back because he wasn't there on time, and Albert didn't wait for him, and you shouldn't wait for people. No. You don't make 5,000 or 8,000 people wait
just for
because one person is going to be late for whatever reason it is. Yeah. Okay, I'll put some of this stuff aside. We'll take a short break. You're watching Hometown Cable. Here's another. This is no one in particular. It's to represent the mannequin for that clothing that was made for that centennial. A couple other things I was looking at as we were off camera, the North Country Medical Center, which is now going through an addition. The board of directors, written to Mr. Morelli in 1960, would like at this time to extend to you their sincerest gratitude for the time and effort you so generously donated by your assistance in the fundraising campaign to make this project possible. People were donating money, and they got like a share. Is that correct?
What it was pledge cards we put out. Homer Larmy and I was in charge of them. And we had to get them out in Moores, Ross's Point, and Champlain here. And I think they also got funding from Sears to get that started.
They had some help, right?
Clifford LaPlante was on that committee, and Jack Zero. I forget who else it was. Jesse Walker. Yeah.
For you younger people you talk about money, this indicates, as you know, construction of the center has now started. The building is on order, and about $38,000 of the $50,000 goal, the addition is going to probably cost them twice of the amount of what the original goal and what it cost originally. The doctor procured committee reports favorable negotiation with at least one doctor. First doctor was Dr. Richard Schulteis, and Albert was involved in that. In 1983, the village of Champlain presented him with a letter. Dear Al, on behalf of the village trustees and myself, we wish to thank you for the number of years you have donated your free time and many talents to our village. The time you gave to the American Legion, the village police department as police chief, and then the many years you gave as a fireman and fire chief are sincerely appreciated. Volunteering our time, efforts, and energy is not easy. You make it seem easy, however. We realize that the words thank you are a very small way of showing our appreciation for your dedication and devotion to our village for many years. As a citizen of our village, you have given more time and interest in our activities than most. Once again, we wish to thank you and wish you the very best in the future. Yours very truly, R.O. W. Parsons, Mayor. Now, if they had given Albert a check for $300, that'd be gone today, and you probably would show it. Have nothing to show for it. This letter today
It's worth more than that.
it sure is. And this is folded, which means it's not displayed somewhere, Albert, and you should have this in one of these things if there's any more room in your porch out there. That is very, very nice. And that's some of the free time. He didn't indicate that some of your police time was pretty free also, even when you were getting paid.
You didn't get paid much in those
Didn't get
days.
paid very much.
No.
Okay, and here's another, just some more of the International Association of Machinists, a 30-year veteran, A.J. Morelli, 11th day of January, 1980. A certificate, Chamber of Commerce Certificate Appreciation for their service to the Chamber, 1980. Rouse's Point, Champlain, now the Northern Tier Chamber. State of New York, Fire Training Certificate. You can see why this is such a diversified person we're looking at. Certificate of Election. Albert Morelli, Councilman. We didn't even think about that. Councilman, the 5th day of November, 1991, and he's our present Councilman. We better change that. Gerald Mayo will never talk to me again unless I say Council Person.
That's right.
Boy, he is very adamant about that. And he calls you Council Persons, right? And that's for how long? 2 years?
4.
4 years, huh? You enjoying that, Albert?
Very much, very much. I'm getting it out with the public, and I enjoy it very much. Right now I'm keeping an eye on them all up there. And as you know, today they started on the remodeling of the golf club.
Yes.
And I go down there once in a while, check on that, see how things are going.
I heard you the other night. I watched the program about the proposed go-kart out on Route 11, you know, and your comments are very good. And
I'm very deadly against it. For the simple reason, if it was in another spot, I'd say yes. But I can't see our youngsters in this village pumping up that Route 11 to ride go-karts and play in pinball machines and stuff, when it's dangerous to go up through there with a car.
You're saying that even the parents could be tough to keep them from to getting
Bob,
up.
you can't keep track of your kids all the time. They get on their bicycles and they're gone.
It's a very dangerous area, that whole golden triangle up there.
I don't care how the rest of the board goes on it. I'm against it.
Okay.
Just because of the location. If it was someplace else, fine.
Were you ever on the village board?
Yeah.
Oh, God, there's another one. How long were you a village trustee?
I got a letter. I resigned from the village board when I took over the police department. I couldn't be on both.
Were you on when Dan Marr was on at that time? I have a recollection, no?
Let's see. When I was on, who was that?
Well, as you get older, you know.
It might have been Dan Marr.
Huh?
I think it might have been Dan
I think
Marr.
you were on about that time.
Yeah,
I think you
yeah,
were at that time.
But I had to resign from trustee in order to take over the police job. I couldn't hold both.
Well, now, another thing we didn't mention, of course, now you're also making a little bit of money, I guess. You're not donating your time completely up there on the greens. What do you do? I know you're a starter up there.
I'm a starter and a ranger.
And you got a gun in that building. If you remember when we did the golf course, you had a rifle in that building.
That gun is for shotgun starts.
Shotgun starts. And that's the day I called him Andy. And he said, who?
I almost went and got the gun.
But he's got a little cart. He rides around and he let me drive it.
I enjoy it up there, I'll tell you that. I meet a lot of people. We've got a membership of pretty near 500 up there. And pretty close to, I'd say, 75 junior members. You take the 500 adult members, I know pretty near every one of them. And I'd say about 90% I know them by name. And if I can't pronounce their names right, I got nicknames for them, and they know who I'm calling.
We can't mention those. We can't mention all those nicknames, can we?
Oh, yeah, I got one I call the Godfather.
The Godfather.
Yeah, in fact, I got a Christmas card from him.
Who's a Morelli talking about a Godfather? I'll tell you that. You know, I was talking to Andy the other day. I was over to Barcomb's Furniture, and he was mentioning, along with Larry, that there's 180 or 90 on the waiting list to be a member, and you don't want to put any more than 500.
We can't handle anything.
Can't handle it. You'd be too long of a wait.
I'll tell you, Bob, on Saturdays and Sundays, it's like a madhouse down there.
You get up there pretty early, as I recall, right?
About 5:30 in the morning.
It wouldn't be worth my going to bed.
Well, I think next year we'd see that they're building a new clubhouse. I'm going to ask them to make me a bedroom up there.
All right, Emergency Management Institute. Does that say Federal Emergency Management course? A recognition, introduction to radiology monitoring. Is this for the fire department? And are you on the ambulance too?
I used to be, yep. I help out a little, but I stay back a little bit because I ain't taking all these new courses they're putting out. And you've got people in there right up on the ball. In fact, I ain't ashamed to say it. I think we got the best ambulance crew in this county. And in fact, we were the first ones to start an ambulance crew in this county. We were the first department in the county to have a woman in the fire department. Plattsburgh come in shortly after and put one in. But when we put our ambulance in circulation, we had Debbie Goss. I don't know if you remember her.
I remember the name. Yes.
Debbie?
Yep.
And we took her, she had to be a fireman in order to work on an ambulance, and her and Kenny were damn good on the ambulance. We were the first one to accept a woman volunteer fireman.
You know, as I look at all these certificates and all these things you've been involved in, are you a cousin or anything of Leo Letourneau?
Leo and I were born and brought up together.
I guess you follow the same line.
Leo was born and brought up right across the road from me.
Well, let me ask you this. I really should ask this. Who's the oldest between you and Leo?
I think Leo.
You want everybody to know that, right?
You can
Well, we
tell
we got to
he's
know
the
that.
oldest.
Yeah, I think he's going to be 72. He told
Yeah.
us. All right, because we used to argue with Oral and he and
There was him and his brother
and Mr.
Paul,
Brockett.
Bertha, and his brother George. Right across the road. His mother and dad were very nice people.
All right, here's a County of Clinton Bureau of Fire certificate. Albert Morelli satisfactorily completed a course in the LP Natural Gas Fire Control course, 1982. I don't know what I'm going to find when I unfold these things, folks, so you're with me here. This is a fire training certificate. This is an old one. They don't even put a date on this one.
I don't know.
That's before they even had dates. They didn't have calendars. Basic course, probably 50 years ago. And the City of Plattsburgh Civil Defense. 8-hour RM. What's RM practical? RM. Did you ever mount, when they had that civil defense, watch the stars for planes? Did you ever? Were you ever on that tower?
Service. I used to go up on Bringbird's Hill up there and sit in the tower.
We had a tower across from McDonald's there a little bit too. There was a
Well, the one I sat in was up near Bringbird's ski shop.
Yeah.
Go up there and sit there all night, monitor planes.
Monitor planes, and nothing ever happened. So you kept it. Must have worked because no one ever bombed us.
Yeah. After I got in, see, when I got out of the service, I got home on a Sunday, and Monday morning I was to work. The guy, Jack Zero, said, "What are you coming to work for? You can have time off." I said, "There's nobody around for me to visit with."
Yeah. Everybody was gone. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll balance the our statistics here. See what we can get back with shortly. Thank you for watching Hometown Cable. What's going on here? Bob Venn, Albert Morelli, in the village of Champlain, Mr. Everything. We are looking at a newspaper that does not have a date. This gives, again, if you got pictures, put dates on them because it's hard to tell. But he figures this back during just after the war, back in the 40s. This is probably, you say, one of the worst wrecks you've ever been in as a fireman and or...
No, I wasn't a fireman at the time
Oh,
of this
okay.
wreck. I was working for Albert Antio, and I think Albert and I were the last two people to see these three people alive. They left the restaurant where we were working. That's when Albert had the restaurant on the corner of Washington Avenue and Lake Street. I think it's a parking lot now. And they went up Pratt Street, and Albert brought me home, and we heard the crash from my house.
Hit a train.
They plowed right into the train right near the depot. 3
people were killed. John Poirier dies in the car, and 2 companions expire in Plattsburgh Hospital a few hours later. Francis Brennan, John Poirier, and Wilfred Bertrand, 30, 28, and 25 respectively, stuffed out in a short period of time. A bad accident, and again, that wasn't necessarily drinking and driving. That was just, weren't watching, right?
Well, according to the paper clipping here, there might have been frost on the windshield of the car when they were going up. They were going up to Mr. Fitch's restaurant. That's where Benny Arnold lives now.
Okay.
That used to be a restaurant there. All the railroad men ate there. And after Benny had it, I think Butterball's father had it.
Yep.
And after that, Benny Arnold's mother had it. Then Benny took it over and made a home into it. That used to be a beautiful restaurant. They made the best beef stew around for quarter a bowl.
There were a couple of restaurants right there at the at that junction.
Well, there was a Montgomery Hotel there. My mother worked there for years.
let's see here. All right, then we have, this is
that's part
one
of
of the victims here. This was Laura Bertrand. And then here's a note that he's got in his scrapbook. Cupmaster honored, November 20th, 1958. S.B. Rouse from England sends him a note congratulating him and then mentioning about the Rouse's Point because Rouse's Point was named for the Rouses. Jacques Rouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Did he spell it the right way there?
He spelled his R-O-U-S-E.
Yep.
And some more pictures. That's Mr. Poirier. I guess he was the driver of that car in the accident. And some of the ball players here in, is that Rouse's Point? Left to right, Roy Rawson, Ken Brothers, Jim McGowan, Benny Carpenter, and Roy Thompson. Back row, McKenna manager, Bob Pepper, George Barney, a long-time resident of Rouse's Point. You must have grew up with him. And George worked his last years before he passed away for the Myers, F.W. Myers. And then Harry Yell, Benny Laware, Milton Cronkright, assistant managers, all names in the past. That's the Eris Five out of school.
That was a rough
41,
basketball
42.
team. Most of those guys have all passed away. You
Yes.
take Kenny Brothers, he got killed in World War II.
Okay, some more of the, this is 73-year-old Point Railroader awaits retirement. And there is Frank S. Morelli, Albert's dad. Worked 50 years. 50 years is a long time. When people today can retire at 25 years, he could have had two for the same length of time. And, of course, his son followed through at 43 years. And 43 years wasn't really unusual at the Sheridan, was it?
No.
Or Harris.
No.
Many people.
A lot of old-timers there.
Paul Lavoie
Oh,
must
my
have
God,
had
yeah.
nearly 50, huh?
Yep.
And I don't know about Henry and Nazaire. They all had
There's quite a few with 50 members.
50-year members.
Yeah,
At
quite a
the-
few.
Don't see that. You won't see that again, I don't think.
No.
You retired then, at 55 and 60.
Yeah.
You can't have 50 years.
No.
Although George Levine just retired from Customs. I think he had 52 years as a Customs officer. And, all right, there's dozens of pictures like this in here, and I don't exactly know what I'm going to come to next, but we'll just see if we can get one here. Albert, here's some pictures of scouting awards. At the Legion, I guess. That's the Legion picture. Another, who is this?
Oh, my God. That's me and my Uncle Bert. I didn't know that was in there.
Albert Morelli. Always wanted to be a sailor. And your uncle who?
My Uncle Bert. He used to own a restaurant that Albert Antiel took over in Ross's Point. You remember George Brothers? Old George Brothers in Ross Point? And Gladys Dion, Phil Dion's
Yes,
wife.
okay.
That was their father.
Okay.
He married my mother's sister.
A lot of pictures like this, and if you've got a lot of pictures and you'd like to, let's look at them along the way.
That was taken at Mr. Johnson's studio on State Street, right next to the Alexander House.
What was his first name?
Albert.
And he took pictures for many, many years.
Yeah.
And he had, as a matter of fact, Dr. Victor Castine's mother, Jackie, used to color the pictures for Mr. Johnson. She, I think, lived there and so forth. Here, tell us what this is. This is a picture of trophies. Do you remember what that was for?
Oh, yeah, we won the Sheridan golf tournament. We won trophies. Al Strack and I, and who was that, Duke Cologne?
Yep, Lester Duke Cologne, Albert, and then
Al Strack.
Al Strack.
That's when we used to have our Sheridan golf league.
Yep. Then the Harris had their paper, right? You had paper. This shows the Quarter Century Club back in 1982. Probably one of the pictures we just saw in the other. And he kept the standings. Now, your son was quite a ball player, too. He, the Burge Palmer, 1976. When was, that's police work differs in Rouse's Point, Champlain. A story about the police work by Steve Manor, explaining how this department and Rouse's Point departments differed, right? You were still chief at that time in 76. Okay, we'll take another break. We'll be, wait a minute, here we see a North Countryman of 1973. That's when we're going to celebrate our 100th birthday. Champlain Laundry at that time. That was before their disastrous fire, I believe. And then that's when the Downtown Musso's Pharmacy was on the corner of Main and Elm. And then the display in Greenberg's Hardware, where the auto parts of Champlain are now. And then I look in that window, I can see 6 or 7 of those things on a board that belong to myself. And they all were returned. All kinds of things in there that old times in the village of Champlain. So on your screen is a plaque that is on the inside of this book, and this is before Albert knew that people were going to give him little plaques, so he made one for himself. It says, on June the 1st, 1940, I obtained this piece of bark at Wilmington, New York, way down 70 miles from here, as a souvenir of my trip there. Albert Morelli. How old were you then?
I was in grade school. I went there with the nuns on a picnic.
Is that right?
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you didn't know you'd have all these other plaques of that, did
No,
you?
no.
Okay, along with these, that picture is here is a 1971 advertisement from, I guess, the North Countryman, October 28th. It shows that Albert Morelli leaving the ticket for town supervisor. He never was supervisor, so you know he didn't win that one. Then William Kennedy, town clerk, the only man in this group that is no longer with us. Kennedy's owned the 2 theaters, the Lyceum and then the Lyric in Rouse's Point. And they also owned the one in Chazy, and opened for a short time. Then George Racine, still living on the Hayford Road, was highway superintendent. Leo Letourneau, town justice. Lester Hamill, town justice. Alfred Glode, living on the Webb Dubois Road for town justice. Jules Treya, assessor for 4 years. I don't know if he won that year, but he won other years. Of course, the Treya Construction Company, and a guest on our show a couple of different times. And Robert Gay, my brother-in-law, assessor. I know he didn't win. I don't remember him ever being assessor. Today he's working with Prim Hall. He worked over 25 years with you up at the Harris and Sheridan. In addition, Albert has some pictures that aren't as happy. The times when the village of Champlain was going through some other types of water problems. Lately, they haven't had enough water on Prospect Hill, and we've had the quality of water. Here you had your choice. There was water coming in your front door and in your basement. This is the corner of Main and Lower Church Street right here, where Ankhill's garage is today. This is his father's garage around the back of the old bakery. You can see that the ice is halfway up to the doors. That's right where the bad curve in the river, the bend. Here's where the old Grand Union was, right on the corner. This is the bank building as you head up toward the KFC. You can see on the right. Pictures. They had one of the worst ones they had in 1946. I don't know what year these were. I think this was a little bit after that. Here's that same building. Now the ice is up to well over halfway. This is that same building. Now the windows are underwater. In the scrapbooks, a lot of people don't save things. Morelli is not one of those. He saves things. Saved everything except his money. Right?
Yeah.
Here, all kinds of shots of the ice. Again, it shows the bakery here. There's that same garage, the side of the bakery. Most of these were taken from the bridge as it crossed over the main street, just going up, heading up here toward French Village. This is a picture here of graduation in front of the Anchorage. I'm not sure. No, I don't think that is the Anchorage. 1940. You know where that picture was taken? This
one was
picture
that?
here?
Well, that's in front of the rectory in Ross Point.
Okay. Now, were you in that class? 1940? You probably graduated 1940, huh? Did you go to St. Patrick's? Did they have a...
Yeah. I am right there.
Okay, but they did... That was 8th grade then, probably.
Yeah, 8th grade.
8th grade. Oh, yeah. We made him older all of a sudden. You graduated in 44?
From there.
High school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And some of the...
I'll take that back. I didn't finish high school.
You didn't finish. Okay, some of the...
I went to service.
Okay, some of the various sisters here. And this old type pictures, the kind you glued in back there. They didn't slip in. Various people here. We won't go... There's George Duffy picture.
Mm-hmm.
We'll remember him. And by golly, he did become in the Navy. He had a little Navy suit sitting on his uncle's lap, and there he is in a real uniform, Albert Morelli. I didn't know you were in the Navy. I thought you were in the Army.
No, Navy.
Okay, this must have been one of the pictures he didn't like. He tore it right out of here, see?
No. I'll tell you what that is. My granddaughter, Lana. When she was small, we had a lot of pictures of her nude, you know.
Yeah?
So my wife went up one day and she went through the picture albums. All the pictures were gone. Lana went upstairs and took them all out and destroyed them all. Don't ask me where they are.
Well, this one isn't a nude. This is Agnes, his sister Agnes, who married Clifford Duquette. Agnes Duquette, now living in Florida most of the time, except for the summers when they come up here. They're living just above Tampa, right on the west shore there in the bay, right?
Yeah.
I forget that. I'm trying to think of the name of the town. I just sent them a card last night. Some of the old pictures of the time. Can't put names with these here. Let's see. They're smaller. These are relatives and friends, I take it. Is this you?
No. It's my cousin.
Okay. We'll just...
that there's one of my wife's boyfriends. I don't know who he is.
Oh.
This here, too. I don't know who he is. That's him.
Okay. Well, at least you don't throw them away. They're part of history, right? You can't change. Did you ever have any other girlfriends that you did not marry?
I had girlfriends, but I never married any.
That's what I'm saying, yes. So you kept that pictures too, huh? Who is this?
That's a cousin from Schenectady.
Right in tune here with Santa Claus?
Mm-hmm.
And we enjoyed our visit to the Rouse's Point Fire Department Sunday the 13th, when we talked to many of the children who were up there to see Santa Claus and take some rides. And by the way, we didn't forget the fire departments in the area. We said we were going to do a story on each fire department. That'll come up, I guess, in the spring and next summer, right, Calvin?
Hopefully.
We jumped the things around, and we're kept pretty busy. And this will be the second one today I've been to, and then tonight I'm going to photograph.
That there, Bob, is a scrapbook I kept while I was in the service.
These are not many local pictures in this, right?
Them are postcards from England and all over the place.
Okay,
I
we
don't
probably
think that'd be
won't
much
get into those. We
interest.
more or less, there's nothing here. Various postcards and they're not pasted, so there are some people who save these things, and they are nice
all
postcards.
different parts of England.
They're unused postcards, right?
Yeah.
And they were known as penny postcards, some of these back then.
Right.
You could use a penny to use these. Where did you go in the service? Where would you spend most of your time?
In ETO. I was
European.
I was in the first. I got in on the tail end of the invasion of Africa.
Uh-huh.
And I was the first wave to hit the beach in Sicily, the first wave to hit the beach in Salerno, and the first wave to hit the beach in Normandy.
Ever wounded? Lucky?
Lucky. I'll tell you how many guys we had on board the USS Thomas Jefferson I was on. Several years after the war, Lion Trudeau moved next door here to me. And we're sitting out there alone having a beer. We got talking about it. And he says, well, God, Al, he says, I was in the invasion of Sicily. I says, you were? Not Sicily, Salerno. I said, God, I didn't see you. He said, what ship were you on? I says, USS Thomas Jefferson. Well, he was in the Army. He says, well, that's the ship I was on. We were both on the same ship, left over in Africa, went way to Italy.
Never knew
bumped
you.
into him on board.
Tell us who Lion Trudeau was.
Lion Trudeau was one of the best wrestlers around here. Nobody could touch him.
Do you know who he's related to?
Oh, he's got a brother Morris.
You got some sisters?
He got some sisters, yes. Orville Trombley's sister.
Yeah, and Orville.
Calvin's father's mother.
Yeah, Calvin's mother. Yeah, that's her brother you're talking about.
Well, I'll tell you, I used to spend a lot of time down there on the farm with them guys.
Yeah.
And well, let me tell you, they were a rugged bunch. Nobody could push them around.
That's the stone house where...
right across from the pavilion.
Yeah, where Victor Castine was living. The Castine family was there.
In fact, I went to school with Calvin's mother and Orville's wife.
Yeah. You remember the boxing?
Yeah.
Did you ever box, Albert?
Mm-hmm.
You did box?
I did once. I got the hell knocked out of me and I quit.
Well, did you box Oral Parsons?
No. That's when they used to have boxing matches in Ross's Point and back at the Windsor.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
well, the Windsor, give it a better name. Give it the name that everybody knows it as.
Right now, the Saxony.
The Saxony, right.
That used to be the Windsor.
Absolutely.
And they had boxing matches and wrestling matches. Jim Leroy was back there fighting Bob Cleveland, the Mighty Atlas, And
He went on to become a
and
very
once in a
popular
while they
wrestler.
put some of us kids up. So I said, "The heck, for $3-4, I'm going to try it." So I got in there, Merle Cooper, and I got the hell knocked right out of me. That
Well, you
was
know,
the end of it.
I saw one of the articles about Cooper. He was what, 10 years old, 11 years old. Were they? We were
Yeah.
fighting. Yeah. Someone
Yeah.
said, "Well, why could
Yeah.
they? How could they fight that age?" I said, "Well,
Oh,
none of them were licensed, right?
We had the big, heavy gloves
Yeah.
too. You know,
Yeah.
couldn't get hurt.
But they scare you, so you never went back,
Oh,
right?
I never went back. That,
Yeah.
that was it.
Had
That
enough
was
of
it.
that? That's the only thing you ever quit in your life.
Oh, I think so.
All right. What is this picture? Just another picture of the
Oh, that's another one of the Sheridan
of the Sheridan 25 years.
Right. Uh-huh.
Okay. Well, I just brought a couple things here that I'd like to. You never went to St. Mary's, did you?
No, my wife did.
All right. She graduated from St. Mary's.
Yep.
Okay.
My 2 children did.
Okay. Well, now
Both
this is
Indian
a
Mary.
picture of the old convent in the front,
Right.
the wooden one that's been taken down, and that's where the boarders that were at St. Mary's lived. And this is the remember Machine Works at Champlain like that.
Right.
What corner was that? Where is that located, Albert? In that is that the road that
That's the front.
that's
front
the
of it.
front.
Yeah, that's before they built the addition off this end.
So the addition is on this
yeah,
end, right?
that's the old shop before they put the addition on.
All right. And
We
this-
used to come out the door there, and the parking lot was right here.
and look at the trees in the village. Here's the corner of Church, which runs this way, and Main, which runs away from you, and the stairway going up to the second floor at the old village hall. This was the fire department underneath. I don't know when that picture was, but I would assume it's in the 40s. And that building was in pretty good shape then,
Right.
and all those trees are gone. We have no more trees in the
No, they
main
cut 'em.
street. Yep,
No.
they're all gone.
We planted new ones, and a lot of them got broken before they even started to grow.
Yeah, things change over the years. This is an article I got out of one of these community exhibits books that they had when we were kids. They're talking about the following baseball score was found in an old notebook. Wilmer Angel lost his life shortly after in the train wreck. August the 5th, 1891, George Lambert, Archie Panchon, Fred Harmon, Amos Lambert, Emerson LaFlamme, Eddie Roberts, and Israel Manette, my wife's grandfather,
Yeah, I remember him.
played against Ralph Douglas, Wally Hawkins, Wilbur Smith, Charles Doolittle, Ed Cook, Walter Graves, Mose Graves, Willie Angel. The score was 29-22 with 58 errors in the ball game. 58 errors. Wilbur Smith had 11 of them. It was not a pitcher's battle. The shop team and the school team. And here's one of the some of the old telephone numbers. 11R,
Yeah,
Square Deal Garage, Blair in Moores, the Savoy Hotel, a Strictly Modern, a good house in a good town. Now it's apartments.
Right.
The Savoy, right there in the corner of Prospect Street. And here's another baseball game. This was in 1913. Tyndall, Harry Miro, Harry Laundrie,
Right.
Eugene Strong, A. Brothers, Latterell, the catcher, Bill Brothers, the center fielder. I think it's Pete Hogue,
Right.
Seguin, and Orion, who was the pitcher. Against Champlain, Dunn, probably our attorney, right? Miller, Spellman, Barber, Garand, LaFontaine, Mellon, which could be related to Bud Mellon, King, Malcolm, the pitcher, Coonan, could be Harold, or it could have been Danny.
Dorsey, Danny.
Yep.
Any one of them.
Dustin. That score was 3-2, and there were only 10 errors that day. They talked about the game in the 90s. In that game, Champlain, there were a total of 8 men struck out of 111 at bat, 51 runs scored, and 58 errors. That was the previous year.
Yeah.
In this game, Ryan struck out 17 and allowed 4 hits. The difference in the contrast of the ball game. This picture I had up for the reunion, I'd like to show you for our 50th anniversary. This picture is taken standing in front of Pauquette's Old Insurance on the main street, looking down at where the Grand Union was, and now the co-op is right in here. And then the Masons have their building upstairs. Right. These two buildings are gone.
Right.
And this is taken in 1872 with a dirt street in the village of Champlain. And on this poster, Melissa McManus noticed it said Grant Wilson. And that was a banner for the election of Ulysses S. Grant.
I've got a piece of this building hanging in the front of my garage.
You do have?
Right out in front there.
That was torn down in the...
You remember those iron flowers that they had way up on the gables?
No, I don't.
I got one, and my wife painted it, and I got it hanging on the front of the garage. When Carl French tore that building down, I had to watch traffic out there.
Yep, that was just after the Expo 67, or late 60s.
Yeah.
This is the American House in Champlain, Main Street, and this goes around to Cedar, and there were two different businesses here. There was no top on the porch, and a meat market on the bottom was Maynard's Meat Market. That's Marshall Maynard's grandfather, and you see the horse and buggy, 1872.
Robin's Nest now. Right?
Robin's Nest now, okay. 3-story.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a door, it comes in here now.
Yeah.
That, again, is just some of the old pictures. The picture that taken by Mr. Costello. Mike Costello. This is Church Street, right here. This is Spruce with South across. You know all the housing now that's a little along here on South Street? There was nothing there then. The shopping center is in this area, and Route 11 was not there. That was taken in the 40s. Okay? I live just up beyond these trees here, and in here is, well, Castine and Oliver lives in here. This is South Street. None of those houses were there in the shopping center. Just to show you how things change over the years. All right. This is Mr. Zerlo's house. I think it was right here in the corner. This is Judge Roberts at that time, Bill Roberts' house, now owned by Carney. John Carney lives here now. Just some of the pictures. I don't know what you remember, but the pictures of the fire in Champlain in 1912. Do you remember seeing those before, Albert? It started over on Main Street near the Village Hall, which is right here with the high thing. It swept through near where Jefferson's were, and went over and it burned, which is now the funeral home. We've told you that some of the other stories, I think. And here where they're pumping water in the river to get it to the places, and there's another one of the buildings destroyed. And this is where the old post office was on the lower Main Church Street, and that was 1912.
That was before my time.
Yes, but you know the pictures were before mine too. But the pictures were around, you know. Just something that's old. Oh wait a minute here. This is a picture of the old steel bridge that crossed on Elm Street in Champlain. And this is the Champlain house across the street. You see the horse and buggies, probably taken at the turn of the century.
I remember when they took them old steel bridges down and put the new ones in that they got now. We had the old wooden bridges that we came across, one down near the park.
Yes,
and the other one was near the church on where Bob Duma is.
Oh, they crossed there? Oh, yeah?
Yeah, in back of Kenny LaPlante's there. Yeah. I used to go across there with my father with loads
the
of ice.
Methodist Church.
Yeah.
Yep.
They had a wooden bridge there, you know, it was down low so you could get back and forth.
This is a picture that I've got, someone gave me. I think it's a postcard. And the telephone office is up here on the right, about where I am here. And this is a picture of the boat building that they did on River Street with the barges they were building, you know, and there's a couple of them in here now. You can see. That's just a little bit east of the fire that they had there on River Street 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And here's a picture of Champlain, and we think that the original ironworks was right in this area, in those trees. It's all changed because of the trees.
Right.
The trees are all gone, you know. And in World War I, you had Liberty Bonds trying to get money. This is a meeting they had. Captain Jensen of the Canadian Black Watch, wounded and gassed at Ypres, spoken extensively, trying to raise money for the war effort, about 1917, 1918. Okay, we'll be right back. We're talking at the home of Albert Morelli. Please stay with us. Picture you now see on your screen is a picture of the retired chief in Champlain, Rowland Emery. Dick Emery here lives in Champlain on Church Street's father, who served as a police chief for 29 years prior to his retirement, and he died on July 26, 1970, in Vermont. Born in West Shazy, and it was spent many, many years and donated and spent a lot of time for the children in this area also. Someone you could emulate yourself after, right? All members of the New York State Police were bearers at his. Richard and Russell Tremblay, our sheriff, and Roger Voigt, Roy Garrett, Voigt.
Roger Vogt.
B-O-G-T, it says here. Yeah. Bruce Stiles, Armand DeRussi, honorary bearers Albert Buskey, and Edward Dietz. Bring respect here to Alan Emery. We should talk to him a little bit about. I wanted to at least show you that. Before we go into some pictures, we're going to try to. You want to stop this now, Calvin, before you start in again? Or you're going to try to do that while we're. A picture. Okay. From the North Countryman of January 13th, 1966, when most of the main street from Elm Street all the way up to Mrs. Castine's across from the American House burned. That included the Speedy Wash, the meat market, Chevalier's meat market area.
Orville Dunn's law
office was right here on the right.
Mary's beauty parlor.
Beauty parlor. Way on the left was Kaufman's department store. On a cold January 12th, right?
2 days of it.
You remember it?
Yes, I was there. You see pictures of me.
Yes. The ice piled up, I would say, 8 and 10 inches thick, right?
Yeah.
All around.
We couldn't shut a hose off.
Here is a picture on the right of the ice on the building.
There I am.
There is Albert right there in the picture. Here, this is Kaufman's block here to the left. And here are 3 firemen here standing in the slush, waiting for it to freeze around their feet, really. And they were in front of the law office of Orville Dunn. How many of the fire departments came in on that? Do you remember how many fire departments?
Oh, my God. They came from even Plattsburgh Air Force Base.
I guess it started on the 11th because here's the paper of the 12th.
Yeah.
And right here on the left is Ernie Hamill, Lester Hamill's brother, and also was the husband of Grace Hamill, Grace Ashline Hamill, here on the left. And there are 3 firemen here on the right. Wendell McMillan Wright hangs on to his helmet. I don't know if he was local. Probably wasn't. Eh? Then Floyd Bayshard, it says, center, still manages a bright smile. It doesn't say the temperature here, I don't think. But it was a terrible fire and lost his range from $130,000 to $200,000. 4 business buildings and 5 apartments were gutted. Very little was salvaged and it never was rebuilt. Never rebuilt that part of the community. Here's some smaller pictures. It shows the smoke taken from the bridge. The fire was over here, which is right across from the auto parts store. Now you see getting the smoke. And then here are all the buildings here on Main Street. The hoses, the streets were completely shut down. The hoses were across, and just a absolutely cold day.
I'll tell you, it was so cold that I came home. I had one of these kerosene torches there, you know, their tanks, and we had to put that underneath our truck with canvases on the side because the pumps were freezing up. Ben Dane and I set it up under there to keep the pumps going on the trucks.
And when you want to know what a fireman goes through and it's cold, just get within a couple of blocks and watch them fight this fire when it's below 0 and that wind is blowing. Right. Here is the aftermath of the fire, and look at the water that's been frozen on that building. And you remember, it just kept, once it froze in, every time they put more water, it kept freezing a little bit thicker and thicker and thicker. It don't freeze sudden like that, but that's how the water was running. This is near Orville Dunn's offices, which were way to the south the last building to the right on that, right? People looked at it. It was an eerie sight in the village of Champlain. Here's early, I guess, in the fire where they're putting some of the smoke on, and here's Raymond Wood getting his face treated for minor lacerations. Just the ice would be enough to cut you. People forget that ice. Now, here's some of the law books being carried out of Lawyer Dunn's. This down here is Rainey Bayshard from the farm equipment here. This was, they congregated inside in the hardware store across the road to get warm.
Lewis's Hardware in Paquette's office.
Yep. You must have hated to go back out, huh?
Paquette, they had coffee there at Force and everything else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dwayne Tremblay was chief at the time.
Dwayne Tremblay.
Yeah.
All right. This building is still here. This one didn't burn.
That's
It used to be, someone told me, the old arcade. You remember the arcade ever being there?
No.
I guess Frank Manette told me that.
Yeah.
This was the arcade. They used to have pool tables and in that building, that brick house on the corner, that brick building on the corner where Babby's are. That was a very, very popular building. Then later it was Mert's Restaurant.
Yeah.
And I guess that covers those pictures, Albert. Anything else you want to tell us here in general? You got something else here we're going to look at? Border gunman dead. Now this is 1969. 3 customs officers were shot at that time, if you remember. I wish I could remember the names here.
I think they're
in here. I'm just not hitting a good. There were three of the customs officers. One has William Grinter, 47 of Rouse's Point, who has since passed away. David Hoff of Ellenberg, who has since retired. I believe he's retired now. And then Leonard Shoyo, Chagnon, C-H-A-G-N-O, lives on Champlain Street, and he was shot the most severe. And when Mr. Grinter died 10, 12 years later, he still had the bullet, I believe, in the groin. They decided they would leave it rather than to risk the operation. And here are the men with their guns. I don't know if you people out there know what happened. They took this man by the name of Jesus R. White, 22 years old, off the bus. They brought him in to investigate him, and while they were investigating him and asking him questions, they found some Black Panther material in his pocket. So they called the Mr. Shoyo, who was the customs agent in Rouse's Point. When he came over, he was the only man in the building with a gun. Nobody else had a gun. They just had paper clips and staple guns. That's all they had. And there came a time when he told him he was going to search this man who had a shark skin coat and a top coat on, and he said, "You're not going to search me." So Mr. Shoyo was sitting down and got up to see the man, and as he did, the man reached down in his groin area, pulled out a gun, and shot Leonard twice. When people outside heard the shooting, the other two, Grinter and Dave Hoff, came in, and he shot both of them down in the lower part of the body. Mm-hmm. And then, at the time, Frank Kavanaugh, the real estate man, was sitting at a table. The man shot was right there, and there was a window here, and he had the phone, and he was talking with the FBI in Plattsburgh. The man was standing right here, and he hastily shot at Frank. It went across in front of Frank and knocked the board off the wall where you hang clipboard, and missed him. And of course they're saying, "What's happening?" All this shooting. Frank turned to go into a door. He was scared, obviously. He went in this door and he closed it. In the meantime, this White took off down the little hallway, turned into another office, and before Frank could close another door that was in another angle, the man came in and at point blank shot at Frank Kavanaugh, and it misfired. And I asked Frank, what were you thinking? He said he didn't think of a thing. He was scared to death, obviously. Then the man broke out of a door and went in between what is now Route 987, between there and what is now the Oak Street, and got in that wooded area. And they were completely encircled by the state police and the other police. And they didn't dare go in with their lights because he would shoot anybody with a light, and they just kept him in there. And sometime early in the morning, They heard a shot, and when it got light in the morning, until 6:30 a.m., it says here, they went inside and he was dead at the base of a tree. He had shot himself.
He shot himself shortly after he got down in there. If you read the article in the paper, when Earl came back, I had him come up there with me. We patrol that street all night long. And when Al Stanford called me from the customs, told me what happened, I just got back from St. Albans with Sergeant Volks, went over to see Judge Rasco. And he called me just as I was laying down in bed. I says, okay, I'll get Earl and I'll get out there. He told me he was headed down through the fields. He says, you're not going to get Earl. He said, Earl is gone to Plattsburgh with the custom officers and the ambulance. Well, here I am all alone. So I strapped on my revolver. I took my shotgun. I went out through the backyard, out through the cemetery, and out in the fields out there. And I laid against a tree out there watching, because I knew the state troopers were coming down, you know, and I'd wanted to make sure I didn't get involved in shooting any of them. Well, I stayed there for quite a while. Then it dawned on me. I said, what am I doing out here all by myself? I said, I know where I can get some help. It was on a Friday night, and that's when Dwayne had his poker games upstairs over the garage. Richard Eddy was there, Homer.
Oh, all right.
Homer Miller, Sonny Babby, and him. So I went up and I told him the problem I had. Hell, we'll help you. Dwayne went and got a gun. I gave Sonny my deer rifle. I'm glad I didn't give him my shotgun. So I put them all up in back of the old customs up there on Oak Street. And I said, don't do any shooting unless you know what the hell you're shooting at. Because I said, there's people coming down through the fields. Well, we weren't there 10, 15 minutes. We heard 3 shots. So Bruce, Jerry Luck was there with me. I said, Jerry, he shot himself. He says, no, he hasn't got any more ammunition.
That was the understanding, he didn't have any more.
I said, how do you know he didn't have any in his pocket? So anyways, we patrolled that area all night long. And provincial police were right across the border patrolling. So around 4:30 in the morning, I says to Earl, I says, come on, we'll go home and have breakfast. We come here, we sat there, and my wife cooked us up a little breakfast. I says, it's getting pretty close to 6 o'clock, daybreak. Let's go back up in there. So we went back up, back of the customs. We weren't there 5, 10 minutes. We heard 3 shots. I said, oh, Earl, let's go. And we both grabbed our revolvers, and we started jumping from tree to tree, heading towards the shots. I looked back, and there's a border patrolman that used to live down in back of Lieutenant's.
Ray Watazak.
Yeah. He come running in, too. He says, what's up, Al? I said, we just heard 3 shots there. And I says, we're just being careful going in. Well, he says, run back to my car on the radio, and he says, call the customs and tell them to send some men down here. We need some help. I said, that's your car? That's your radio? I said, you go run back. I'm not. I'm staying behind this tree. So we kept working our way in. Finally, we got in there. A great big state trooper standing underneath a pine tree, and that's what we saw.
Huh. It was still dark or just getting light?
This was daybreak.
Getting break now. Yeah.
And I says, who did the firing? He says, I did. He says, the agreement was up here that if anybody found them, fire 3 shots.
Oh.
Well, I says, nobody told us that
was
down
a
this
signal.
end.
Okay.
So I said, we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. This was September 27, 1969, paper, Saturday. It happened on a Friday night.
Yeah.
These articles, by the way, I don't have a copy of this. At least I couldn't find it. And I'll now know when it is. I'm going to get a copy. Written by Al Ryan, the chief of the Rouse's Point Bureau, could before Steve Manor. And Al Ryan now living in Vero Beach, bringing his baseball team up here in the spring. You've seen Calvin does at least one game on TV a year. He did last year again. And, of course, that was one of the most scary times that you can remember in the area, right?
Well, I'll tell you, the people were riding along Main Street, a guy driving a car, 2 sitting in the back seat with rifles hanging out both back windows.
Yeah, no one knew.
There was a kid up here at the garage pumping gas. He had a rifle right alongside of the gas pump.
Yeah. And then it got scarier after this because, as I recall, and I haven't seen this in 20 years, I was going by memory before. I worked upstairs in that building, but I didn't know it was going on. I was home at the time. It was happened about 10 o'clock at night. The bus had left in the meantime. But then there was word coming out, rumors were that the Black Panthers were going to come down here and clean out the customs house with those who had killed their buddy because they didn't believe he shot himself.
That's right.
And over the next couple of days, they found knives and they did a little bit more searching, but they didn't ever look at a bus or anything that arrived like that without the state police being there on the premises with their guns in case there was a problem. And because of that shooting, the customs officers petitioned with their unions and so forth, and that's when guns first came along the border. So now they wear guns.
Yep.
At that time, they were, after that, they were only going to let one person wear a gun who was on duty, and eventually it got to that anybody on duty wears a gun now. But they thought it would be very unwelcome-like to have guns by a person waiting to admit you to the country. So, but it was a very scary thing, and you just didn't know who's arriving at that border.
Well, I used to go up there to troopers and stand guard with a shotgun.
And when that was happening, you mean? Right after?
Yeah.
Yeah, for the next month, or they took about 6 months
6 or 8 weeks.
before they got their
Yeah,
permission
we
to
stand
go.
guard up there with shotguns
and they
coming in.
And they still go through, you know, with all kinds of training. They're continually trained. We'll take a short break. Be right back to you. Thank you for watching Hometown Cable. Maybe Al's got a couple more stories. We'll check and see. The picture you see on the screen, and Albert's finger is pointing at it, is a picture of Al Ryan. Looks like his high school graduation, probably taken 47 or 48. And Al Ryan was the one who wrote that article upstairs we just showed you of the shooting at the United States Customs. We're downstairs now, and Albert Morelli is probably the only guy in town that's got a green blackboard. A green blackboard. He's colorblind. See this right here? Right here, and right in front of the railroad station. These two trains, what's the story on these? Whoops, there's one stopped. Okay, we're on. We're in the Morelli Railroad Station here. Of course, you know that his father, Frank, worked 50 years for the Napierville Junction, and this is the Morelli Railroad.
Well,
You, tell us who's helped build this down here.
my son and my 2 grandsons.
Well, names.
Andy, Scott, and Matthew.
Okay, that's what we see down here. You can see that and we thank you very much, Albert. Come over this way. Thank you very much for your time and all your stories, and particularly about the shooting at the customs. Many people don't know. That's 32, 33 years ago, you know. No, 23 years ago. And a lot of people don't remember that, or those that remember don't remember the circumstances. And as the trains go by, we want to thank you very much for watching Hometown Cable. The program here is called What's Going On Here. A little bit different today. We've been in one of the homes of one of our residents, well-respected resident, who has done so much for the village and the people of the Champlain area. Albert Morelli. We mentioned Scouts, Fire Department, American Legion, VFW, a policeman, and everything else. Worked at Sheridan for 43 years, Sheridan and Harris, and now enjoying his well-deserved retirement in the winter, but in the summer, he's the starter at the, what do you call that golf course?
Country.
North Country Golf Course. And when he's not there, he's running trains here in the basement, and where it's nice and warm. Your dad didn't have that heat.
No.
Thanks very much, and thank you for watching us, and thanks much, Albert.
And thanks a lot for coming up.
Okay.